Well, I guess it's time to get started on this. So I see we are probably a minute past 12 noon and give it just maybe 30, 45 seconds to get a few more people joined in here. It looks like I'm looking at a count here. Not quite sure where my count is, but we're going to get started here really quick like. And I have Mr. Morris waiting in the background here. So not quite sure. Okay, it looks like we have about 50 people, and I'm sure others will join. So I just want to take a minute here to thank everyone for joining. Live streams are kind of new to me. I'm going to say that right up front. I kind of prefer to do the recording and bring you the information. But hey, sometimes we have to step outside of our comfort zone here, step outside the box and experience new things. And I want to, thank Mr. Morris for taking the time out of his busy schedule. And because he does work his butt off Monday through Friday and probably on the weekends as well, we're going to try to keep this, short, to the point. I have about 10 questions that come from viewers that have been presented to Mr. Morris that we're going to cover. And I'm not going to keep coming back to those questions. So once a question is asked and answered, we're going to make every effort to keep this moving. And if you join after the fact, halfway through it or later today or tomorrow, go back to the video and I suggest rewatch it and glean that information that you're going to need. We're going to make every effort to be as precise and detailed as possible. So I guess with no further ado, I'm going to see if I can do this right. We'll bring Mr. Morse in. And it looks like, are you with us?
I am here.
Oh, well, Mr. Morris, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Well, I thank you for having me. You were one of the first people who got on the internet and talked about the lawsuit, and I appreciated that. And I figured, I might as well come and sit in your show and talk to you about it. So there we are.
Thank you very much. Yes, I know. YouTube, has been something that, I started in maybe a couple years ago, year and a half ago, and it's kind of evolved and kind of changed. And I become passionate about keeping our viewers, our audience up to date. A lot of them have really been struggling, especially over the last, over this last year. And, from various backgrounds, age, demographics. And I try to do my best just to keep them informed. And by having you on here, hopefully we can bring some clarity to some of these questions. So if you could take a moment and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and what you bring to this.
Right. Well, I've been an attorney now for almost 35 years. I'm a little bit long in the tooth. I'm a little bit over 60 years old. I was born in a little country called Guyana in South America. I was born a British citizen there and or British subject there. And I did some schooling there in Guyana. I also did some schooling in London. And I went to college in New York. Actually, I came to this country when I was 19. The first time I came to America, I was 19. I went to college in New York, graduated there with a business degree in 1980 something, 87, 88. And then I went to law school, University of Miami, where I graduated in 91. And from there, I went to work at a firm called Baker McKenzie, which at the time was the largest law firm in the world, in New York. I worked there for 3 years. I, spent the summer working in London as well. And then I came to Florida and started working with a gentleman named Tom Tu, very well-known lawyer. I worked with his firm for a couple of years, then left him, went to another boutique law firm. And then in 99, decided, I can do this on my own. So I've been doing this on my own ever since 99. And I do a lot of litigation. My first love was really criminal defense, but I love doing that. But my primary bread and butter is civil litigation. And I do some personal injury stuff. I do some immigration stuff. So it's a little bit of a wide spectrum. But again, my first love was criminal defense, but my real bread and butter is the civil litigation.
Very interesting. I know I come from a law enforcement background, so I get to know different attorneys over the years, and you know, and some of them you just have their hands in different baskets, whether it's criminal or civil.
Yeah,
They
there's certain things that I wouldn't touch, but for the most part, if it involves court, I can handle it, right?
there
Because
you go.
like a trial, while the rules might be different as far as procedural and the laws that you're trying to enforce or defend against might be different between the different areas of practice. A lawsuit is a lawsuit for the most part. For the most part, all right. And when you're talking to a jury, you're talking to a jury, regardless of what the subject matter is. So litigation is litigation.
Well, very good. Well, since I'm sure you have an extremely busy week that you come off
Yeah,
from
yeah,
and
yeah.
probably try to relax on the weekend. So I'm just going to jump right into these questions
Sure, sure.
and don't want to
Please.
take up a lot of your time. But a lot of these questions have come to me by my viewers, by my audience, and some that I know online, some that I know personally. So I
Okay.
guess let's just jump into the first one here. So the big question is this class action lawsuit limited just to US residents?
It's an easy answer. No. When you think about it, the reason why this NovaTech Ponzi scheme is so huge, and initially we had a conservative number of 2 billion. That's what we put in our lawsuit, and we've gotten some information recently in the last couple of weeks that suggests that our number is grossly underestimated. The real number is closer to 40, 45 billion as opposed to the 2 billion we thought. So the reason why it was so big is because it was international. It covered every continent, almost every country. And so the short answer to the question is no, it's not just limited to American citizens. It's not limited to anybody. Now, there's been an initial glitch in the law in our website, willmorrislaw.com, which didn't allow people from different countries to put their information in. But I think we've since fixed that. And before we even get to that question, I know there's an issue about the church affiliation. So let me. I might be jumping the gun. Is there a question in there about that?
No, we take it. I'll just scratch that one when we get to it.
So on our website, willmorrislaw.com, there are two cases that I'm involved in. One is the MEFX case. That's another class action, and then there's this NovaTech lawsuit. And so on the website, there's two tabs you can go on depending on which case you're interested in registering in. Now, the tabs send you to a form, and the form is sort of skewed towards both cases. In the MEFX case, for example, we're suing a lot of churches, Seventh-day Adventist churches in particular, because they were primary contributors to the scheme being as big as it was. In NovaTech, however, we're not quite suing. We're not to the point where we decided whether or not we're going to sue any churches, but there was a question there to ask about church. And if you are a NovaTech investor or injured because you invested in NovaTech, and it asks for a church affiliation, and it's not applicable to you, so you just put NA and just move on. It's just not really applicable to you.
Okay, yeah, and that was a big one. In fact, and I'll admit, when I first looked at the form, like that's kind of an odd
It
question
is an odd
until I
question.
started to learn about
Yeah,
the other lawsuit that
that's
you
correct.
have going
That's
on.
correct. What we should have
Okay,
done is separated the forms, but it's neither here nor there. It's a simple NA would suffice. I'm like, not
okay,
applicable.
and that makes sense. Now, how long do people have to join this suit?
Well, there's no time limit. I mean, until I guess I guess the real answer to that is until and unless the class gets certified by the court, which I don't imagine is going to happen for a while. Then that might foreclose some people, but I don't think the real answer is there's no real time limit to registering. Now, I
Okay,
should tell you, I don't even have the numbers of the people who have contacted us since we filed this lawsuit. I mean, as I said in previous interviews, our phones, and if you said our phones have been ringing every 30 seconds, to the point where I don't answer the phone anymore. I mean, we have a
oh,
recording telling
yes.
people where to go. I mean, that was our fault for not contemplating putting a separate number in for people to call. Silly us. I put the firm's main line on the press release, and that's been inundated with calls. Not only that, I've been inundated with emails, and I know we're promising people we're going to get back to them, but we're figuring out how we're going to do that. We're hiring people, we're hiring firms to figure out how we're going to do that. But I just ask for some patience, and we
Mhm.
will get back to people. We will. We have to. because we need them as part of the class. And in order for them to be properly part of the class, they have to be properly retained. They have to properly retain the firm to do so. So yeah, we will get back to you. Please be patient.
So you heard it, everybody. When you go to morselegal.com and you scroll down, there will be 2 tabs. Mr.
No,
Morris, correct me if I'm wrong.
WillMorrisLaw.com.
morselaw.com.
Yeah,
Okay.
WillMorris.
And then you scroll down and there will be the 2 tabs, one for the other lawsuit and one for NovaTech. You click on that and you just fill in the boxes. I'm looking at some questions. People ask, how do we register? And there you have the address. And what we'll do is when I am done with this stream here, I will put those links in the description. So if you come back to it, you can just click that link. It'll bounce you over to his website and then the registration page. So
I also should also point out that that's the website we're going to be giving updates. The same website we're going to be giving updates of what's going on with the case. Right now, there's really no update to give other than the lawsuit's been filed. We're looking to amend the lawsuit to change some of the theories, add a few defendants. As a matter of fact, we're looking to switch things around a little bit. So we're planning to do that within the next week or two. And once that amended lawsuit gets filed, we'll post it on the website.
And I just pulled my copy, all 53 pages of it.
It's a monster.
Yeah. It's good nighttime reading.
Insomnia, I'm sure, for the non-lawyers.
But you mentioned amended, and that makes perfect sense because this has a date of February 5th on it. So we're not even 2 months old on the filing.
As far as litigation goes, this case it's not even born yet. It's still in the embryonic stage. So
right.
It's brand new.
Well, let's move on to the next one then. And a lot of people want to know, so what is being sought? What can people expect, as far as if there is a recovery? Now, obviously that gets played out in the courts. So is it involved just their initial investment, or is it the total amount that people had put they had in their account, which included any kind of compound amounts? Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. But let's think about it this way. Now, if you invested in a Ponzi scheme, Ponzi schemes by definition means that there are no real legitimate returns because there's no real legitimate investments. Mm-hmm. The monies that you see that supposedly the profits from your investments are merely monies from new monies coming in from other people who got involved in the Ponzi scheme. Because essentially a Ponzi scheme is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Exactly. And the way Ponzi schemes fall apart is when new money stop coming in, and the runners of the scheme keep telling the investors, look, don't take your money out, because quite frankly, there's no money to take out because there's no new money coming in. So when you ask about your return on your investment, if there was no real investment, it's not a real return. It's other people's money. So, the courts are not going to allow that to happen if you just establish this as a Ponzi scheme and how the Ponzi schemes really work. They're going to say to the extent you were damaged, your damages is limited to the amount of money you put in.
Yeah. And I think I heard you state in one of your other interviews that it comes down to a percentage calculation.
Right. What's going to happen is, and it'll be a nice problem to have. We're putting the cart way before the horse here. The horse is 2 blocks down the road. It's a good problem to have. It's a legitimate question. Now, what will happen is, there'll be some sort of formula. Let's say, for example, I don't know, we recover $100, and one guy invested $5 and he lost it, and the other guy invested $10 and he lost it. Now, after you take off the costs and all that stuff, let's say there's $70 left, right? So the guy who invested $5 will get 0.5% of the 70, and the guy who invested $2 will get the 0.2% of the 70, and that's how Ponzi schemes work. Because you cannot, first of all, this was a class action lawsuit. Class action lawsuits are strictly reviewed and strictly supervised by the presiding judge, Judge Vernon in our case, in New York. It's strictly supervised. Everything has to come across his desk. He has to approve it. So he has to approve the settlements. He has to approve attorney's fees. He has to approve cost. He has to approve everything. So you can't in a class action lawsuit favor one member of the class above the other. Everybody has to be treated equally, and the way you do that is by having a formula. Let's say you invested 10%. So when we've got whatever is left over, you get 10% of that. Now, it's quite possible that the FTC or the federal agencies are going to prosecute their own claims against NovaTech and its principals, and that'll be one way of collecting some monies out of that. But like in the MEFX case, we don't necessarily think you should put all your eggs in that one basket, because I don't think any one avenue of trying to collect money is going to make you whole in and of itself. I don't think anybody's probably going to be made 100% whole. But if you just go down one avenue, let's say the FTC route, then that's one form of recovery. You go down the class action route, that's another form of recovery. And combined together, that should get you close to being whole. But again, I'm not guaranteeing anybody's going to get whole, because quite frankly, some of that money is long gone.
Wait, yes, yeah, and we have to understand that,
Yeah.
in these platforms, which I'm now just kind of letting everyone know, don't put your money in these. If it's something you want to do, just be prepared to lose it.
Right. I mean, and there's warning signs. There's warning signs that there's problems there when people start promising you a 3% a week return. I mean, the math says it's 144% a year return,
Mhm.
which is an astronomical return on an investment. And then they start telling you that they have some sort of proprietary AI sort of formula and robots and systems by which to invest, and you don't need to know about it, and you don't need any experience, and there's no risk to you, and you get guaranteed this return. And I mean, these are red flags. Anytime you have, as investments go, the higher the return, the higher the risk.
Mhm.
Oh, the other key one is, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what the market does. We are guaranteeing you a certain return. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. If the bottom falls out of the market, how am I getting a return? A return on what or from what? Yeah, and that's why it's a Ponzi scheme, because it's not a return based on the investment. It's a return based on new monies coming in from people, new investors. That's why you can guarantee that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I was looking at my printout of this initial filing here, and I
Mhm.
made a note on it that it's assigned, like you said, to Judge Vernon. And
Mhm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't he a former federal
It
prosecutor?
certainly is. It
So
certainly
he
is.
has a lot of knowledge when we start looking at something that has a federal.
Yeah, we lucked out with that judge. I mean, he's prosecuted these type of cases. So we lucked out.
Uh, maybe I can get him on here.
But he will talk to you.
I'm not holding my breath.
He will talk to you about the case.
Yes. Okay. So on to our next question here that people want to know is, what kind of proof do individuals need to show that they were actually NovaTech customers?
Well, there's screenshots of accounts that people have been sending us. There is their wallet showing that they've transferred money. That's the other thing about crypto, which is sort of unique, and sort of why we get involved in cases like this. Let's say, for example, I don't know, guy gives you $1, and then he comes back and he says, "I want my dollar back. Not only a dollar, I want the exact dollar I gave you." Well, how are you going to know? Well, it's almost impossible to give him back that exact dollar. With crypto, is kind of different. Every crypto transaction is kept on what's called a blockchain, and it can be traced. You see where it left, where it went to, and if it got transferred again, it'll show you. It's just a matter of tracking it down, and it's not fungible like paper money, for example.
Mhm.
When $1 guy goes and burn it in his backyard, it's gone forever. A crypto is never gone forever. Okay, it's never gone forever. So yeah, there is. So to the extent that you're talking about proof, your wallet where you transferred your bitcoins out of is proof enough, and we can establish that. And some people had enough foresight before the website got shut down to take screenshots or
Mhm.
what have you of their accounts, and that would be helpful too if you have that.
So to the viewers out there, between now and whenever, um, get that information together.
Right,
Their wallet addresses or any screenshots that they may have had, just hang on to that.
right, exactly. And at some point, we're gonna ask you for it, and we're gonna garner all that information. We already have some of, and we have our investigators looking at some of the wallets and tracking this stuff down. And at some point, everybody who transfer their Bitcoin from one platform to NovaTech is going to have their wallet information provided to us, and then we'll be able to track it down.
And kind of, a little side note on that is, and I just forgot where I was going with that. You gotta love live.
We're talking about Bitcoins. Let's see. Let's let me help you out here. So it is traceable. Bitcoins are traceable, and to the extent that any transactions happens, it's sitting somewhere out there on the internet that can be tracked down.
Well, yeah, and that just jogged my memory here,
That's right.
because people are saying that the Petyons took all the money. They took all the billions of dollars and they ran off to Dubai or somewheres. Correct me if I'm wrong, but right now, no one really knows where they're at.
No, not quite. Dubai is a good speculation. It's a good place to start because it seems to be a haven for people of that ilk to congregate.
Right. Yes. And is it true? And if I ask a question of you, Mr. Morris, and you can't answer, you can just say, I'm not at liberty to admit it or deny it, and we will all understand. But do you have a team, investigators, tracking down some of these leads?
Short answer is yes.
Okay, and we'll leave it at that. So we will just let you do your magic behind the scenes, and people, we have to respect that he cannot disclose everything.
Sometimes, knowing how the sausage gets made doesn't help matters. But just know we're going to put the sausage on the table to feed you when that time comes.
There you go. Exactly. And then, that train of thought that I lost there a moment ago was about the money, because you were talking about, everything being traceable and people getting their wallet addresses. And some people have asked, well, the Petyons ran off with all the money, but through the blockchain and addresses, there are ways to tracing that money and finding out where it went, correct?
If it's still, listen, if it still exists in the format of the Bitcoin, it's a way to track it down. Let's say, for example, if they liquidated it, turn it into cash somehow, then chances are that's gone, right? Because becomes like fungible again.
Yep.
And if they went out and bought a car with it, maybe you could seize the car, but that actual Bitcoin that represented the money that bought the car is gone. It's gone to somebody else, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, there's a way to figure out whether or not that's somebody else who bought that Bitcoin or paid money for it is not also affiliated. There's ways to figure all that out, but again, it's a lot of legwork, expensive legwork, and it takes time.
So, and you just said expensive legwork. Right now, if someone wants to join this class action lawsuit, there's no retainer fee.
None.
They just sign up. Is that coming out of your pocket, all this work?
Well, yeah, it's coming out of my pocket. It has to be borrowed. It has to be leveraged. Whatever way it needs to be done. But the monies that is being used to prosecute this lawsuit is solely my firm's responsibility. I'm not asking anybody for any monies, and it's purely a contingency situation. If I don't collect monies for you, that means all the monies I've invested in getting to whatever point it was, I lost. So, I mean, it's a business decision for me, and it's not a business decision I take lightly. It's not a business decision I would just get up one morning and say, let's do this, because quite frankly, it's very expensive. And if I get nothing, I stand to lose all my money. So I've made a conscious business decision that this is something that's worth pursuing. There is a pot of gold somewhere. I don't know how big that pot is at the end of a rainbow, and I intend to find it.
Right. So there you heard it, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, because people were saying right up front, as soon as the word hit that there was a class action lawsuit and there was this mysterious attorney out of Miami who no one really knew anything about, the first thing people were saying, it's a scam. Don't trust him.
It's funny. It's funny you
take our money.
A couple of weeks ago, I was in the office on a Saturday and I'm sitting here working and I hear banging on my door. I get up. It's an entire family, husband, wife, child, and brother-in-law at my door. I'm like, what can I help you with? Well, we've been calling and we get no answer. We get this recording every time. We wanted to come to your office to make sure you're for real and you're not a scam. I said, listen, I don't have time to do it, but just come on in and sit down. Like, for half an hour. And it struck me as sort of kind of odd that, and by the way, they lost over $100,000, the whole family. And I thought to myself, look, well, if you had devoted a fraction of the time you took to come to my office to make sure I'm right. And I'm not knocking them. Listen, I'm not. I mean, but this is just the reality. If you had done a little bit of due diligence, you had looked at all the red flags that were blaring and waving and sirens carrying on, you might not have lost that money, but you took the time to make sure me, a lawyer, really exists. That means you have the conscious ability to do some due diligence. And before you ever do something like this again, do that same thing. Go knock on a door and find out, look at a guy in the eye and figure out, do something. Get on the internet, research something.
Mm-hmm.
They could have done the same for me. They could have gone on the internet and see I'm a legitimate lawyer. But they came to look at me in the eye. And I said, sit down, look at me in the eye, let's talk. They walked out of here very happy. I said, okay, God bless you. Let's get it done.
Yeah. And Mr. Morris, you made a comment there, about this family that they were calling and they couldn't get any answers. And I heard you say before, in fact, I think you even said when we started today that sometimes your phone just rings off the hook.
Nonstop. Every 30 seconds.
Yeah. And what I'm going to push out to my audience and anyone who views this is, yes, I mean, this is big. It's said that there's over 500, over 500,000 people involved, correct?
Yes.
That's pretty much what we've been able to establish. And if every person calls Morris Legal's phone number, he's not going to get a thing done.
So, I'll tell you this much. If you want a real response, and I try to do this, because it's easy. I could, on the phone talking to somebody, and I respond to emails all the time. I respond to almost every email. I mean, it's not as bad as the phone calls, because the thing about a phone call is that when you get on that phone call, it could be 2 minutes or it could be half an hour, right? But an email, I can answer an email in 30 seconds, all right?
Yep.
So yeah, if you really, really, really want to talk to me, send an email. I respond to emails.
Well, there you go. You've heard it, people. So make every effort. Don't call his phone number. Let them do the work. Fill out the form when you go to their website. Fill it out and then be patient. He said that he's trying to bring staff in place so that way they can follow up with everyone who is filed. So patience is a virtue. We're going to have to exhibit a great deal of patience as we go through this.
It's like there's nothing to tell you. It's a brand new lawsuit. Brand spanking new lawsuit.
Yes.
So,
well,
nothing happened other than being filed.
Well, and that kind of leads into the next question. Everyone's wondering, how long does it take for any kind of possible judgments in class action lawsuits? Can they hear something by the end of next month?
Martin Luther King once said the let me see if I get this right. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That's similar with regards to the laws of the wheels of justice. They turn, but they turn very slowly. Look, for example, I'll give you an example. The M&EFX case has been going on with the FTC for 2 years now. Nobody's seen a dime yet, and our lawsuit has been going on for about a year, and we're still in the pleading stages. So my guess is, and don't hold me to this, it's going to be years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be years. Okay.
So again, patience, everyone.
Right.
You're not going to get your money back. If there is a judgment, you're not going to see anything by the end of 2024, probably not by the end of 2025.
Probably not.
And probably, well into 2026. I don't know.
Listen, again, litigation is a strange animal. I mean, sometimes it moves quickly and sometimes it moves slower than a snail's pace. And things can happen along the way. Somebody could come forward and say, hey, you know what? Here's this much for my involvement. And who knows what's going to happen? I mean, litigation again is a very, very strange animal. And anybody who tells you that they can predict the outcome or the time frame and when this is going to be, it's not really being forthright. All I could tell you is this: it's slow, but it's steady, and it bends towards justice.
Right. Exactly. Well, people are wondering, if no one knows where the Pettyons are and they cannot be reached, then how can they be brought into this as far as being held responsible?
It's a good question. And I'll tell you, there's just two parts of that answer. One, and we don't know this for 100%. We're not 100% sure of this, but we are pretty sure that the FBI is on this. And from my experience with the FBI, they normally find their person.
Mhm.
They normally find their person, and that person exists and is not buried under a rock. They will find them. Not only that, I mean, in litigation, even though a person can't be found, they can still be held responsible. There's something called this concept when people secret themselves from being held
Mhm.
responsible or service with being served with a lawsuit, which is what you have to do when a lawsuit is filed. That you can serve them by means of publication. You could go to court and say, "Listen, we can't find this person. We don't know exactly where they are." And we're sick and tired of waiting for the FBI to find them, which they will at some point. But we need to serve them and give us permission to serve them by publication. Now, it's the most ineffective way of serving somebody because, quite frankly, like for example, in Florida here, in Miami here, there's something called a Miami Business Review. That's where you have to publish notice that the lawsuit is being filed against the person. But you know who the only people who read that are lawyers. Nobody else does, right? The regular guy in the street is not going to go look and see in the Daily Business Review whether or not a lawsuit has been filed against him. It's just not, right? So it's the most ineffective way, but the law takes into consideration a person who is secreting themselves from responsibility for being served with a lawsuit and allows you to do just that. Publish the notice of the lawsuit in a publication, and that under the law will suffice the service, and that would bring them within the jurisdiction of the court to be held accountable.
Okay, and that sounds fair. That makes sense. I just glanced over, an individual posted a question, Judy did, that I didn't even think of, and it's the first time I've ever heard someone ask, and I believe it's a good question. If an
Mhm.
investor is deceased when some funds are recovered, if that day does come, do the funds go to the next of kin or
Well,
what? How does
well,
that
it
play out?
depends. It depends. If let's say, for example, the person dies and they created what's called a probate estate. They file a lawsuit to disburse that person's assets. Then whatever, assuming there's some sort of recovery in this case, that recovery would have to go into that deceased person's estate and then distributed in accordance with what if they have a will or intestacy or whatever the probate law judge determines. So yeah,
Okay.
it can still be. Um, 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 so the other problem is though, if for example the deceased person does not have their estate open, let's say they don't have a will, and they're just deceased. I mean, that money will sit in limbo until somebody comes forward and legitimately claims it. We just can't just take the money and go, well, gee, you are a son? Okay, let me see a birth certificate. Here you go. That's not how that works, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So when stuff gets tied up in probate, that
Right.
can be a complex system right there in
Yeah,
itself.
yeah, but it's a good question, but you know, we'll get to that. We'll get to that when we get there. At some point, the judge is going to ask, what happened? Is everybody in the class accounted for? And if I can say, well, judge, at least 4 or 5 people, we don't know if they're alive or dead. He's going to make me go out and try to make sure whether or not they're alive or dead. And he's going to make me go out and find their next of kin or something like that and say, listen, you guys need to start a probate. You guys need to do something because the money's sitting there and you don't want it being returned to the state at some point.
Okay, good. Well, someone asked another question here, which leads me right to my next one. Their question is, why are they asking about who enrolled you? And on the forum, the big question was the church issue.
Yeah.
And one of the other questions that I'm hearing from people is, why is your firm asking for who we enrolled under?
Well, you see, again, one of the things we're doing in the lawsuit primarily, after you start thinking about the Pitzians and NovaTech itself, is we're trying to go after people we've dubbed as enablers. All right. Let's say, for example, or enablers or what we call the serial Ponzi schemers,
Mhm.
right? Because it turns out from our investigation, we started realizing the same names keep popping up all the time. The same cast of characters, the usual suspects, so to speak, are moving from one Ponzi scheme to the next. And when one folds, because the Ponzi scheme, by very definition, can't go on forever. At some point, it's gonna collapse. When new money stop coming in, they change it, they pivot, and find a whole new name, a whole new website, a whole new whatever,
Mhm.
and do the same thing all over again. So we're looking for patterns of serial Ponzi schemers, serial scammers to go after them personally. So
The
that's
big
why
promoters.
we're asking that question. It's not we're not asking a question. When you say, "Oh well, my cousin John called me up and say, hey, this is the good thing. I made some money." We're not going after your cousin John, unless
Yeah.
your cousin John is a serial scammer. Huh?
And that makes sense. Yeah, the people that are pushing this, bringing in thousands of people, which he's equating to millions of dollars, and then just hopping from one
Yeah,
platform,
because
one
that's how they make
scheme
their
to
money.
the other.
That's how they make a living, right?
Yep. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's very true. Well, and then another question, kind of a caveat to that one there is, so if they don't remember who they signed up, what do they
And
put in the
leave it blank.
box?
Leave it blank. It doesn't really
Okay.
matter.
All right. So by leaving a box blank is just not going to void it out.
Right. See, my phone is. I'm in my office. My phone is ringing. Somebody's calling about NovaTech. Don't worry about it. That's the message we left.
Yep. Okay. We'll just keep on. And I'm about down to my last maybe question or so, because the next one was about the church information, and we already covered that.
Right.
So, what kind of experience, and people want to know is, what kind of experience do you have with class action lawsuits? Do you have that knowledge and that experience to be able to go after something as large and complex as NovaTech was?
Let me tell you this. No one firm has that. Okay. What I would have to do is when in short order, I'm in the process of interviewing a bunch of firms. A whole bunch of firms wanted to get involved. That's what I did with MDFX. I had to get other firms involved, co-counsel along with me, because quite frankly, the amount of work that's going to be required, my firm alone can't do it. And I do have experience in class action lawsuits, but this is humongous, and it's going to require 2-3 law firms to do it. So
Yep.
I intend to bring in very seasoned, very well-known tobacco type litigation law firms to co-counsel along with me.
Well, yeah, and that's why we're going to have to be patient, people, and allow them time to put everything in place.
It's what's called a beauty contest right now. We're interviewing a bunch of firms, some of them in New York, some of them in Florida, trying to figure out who would be the best fit. And because everybody wants to get involved because it's a humongous case,
Yeah.
So
Well, and this goes right back to, this is worldwide. This
it
is
is.
not just in Florida. This is not just in Michigan where I'm at.
Right.
And by the way, I wish I was down in Miami because I
No,
think
you're
you're a
not
lot
today.
warmer.
Not today. Not today. Today in Miami, it looks like Washington State. It's dreary, rainy, a little chilly. It's chilly for Miami. It's like 70 degrees. It's a little chilly.
I think we got about 4 inches of snow yesterday, so anything's better than that.
I hear you.
So, well, I guess just, the last couple of things here is there anything that you wish to share with the viewers, whether they're with us today or the next few days when they watch this, anything that we have not discussed that you feel important that people know as we go into this?
Well, let's see. We've pretty much covered everything, but I think I do have to underscore people being diligent. And listen, since the pandemic, crypto scams have skyrocketed. The amount of crypto scams has skyrocketed. All right. The Better Business Bureau says last year it was up 33. I mean, scamming, Bitcoin scam was 33% of all scams. So, I mean, it's huge. It's a huge thing, and I think people need before they take their hard-earned money, before they take their bitcoins, which they've paid hard-earned money to purchase, and transfer it from their platform they have their coins on to somebody else who's going to invest it for them. They need to do their due diligence. I mean, anybody who's done the due diligence with the Piccianos, for example, will know that they've been involved in other schemes, and do your due diligence before you pull that trigger, because once that money is gone and you've let it go, unless somebody like me comes along and tries to get it back for you, it is gone. So.
Right, and that's exactly right. And it's like, would people actually walk down the street and hand a complete stranger $5,000 and the stranger says, "I'll give you 3% back tomorrow. Just meet me back here in the park."
Right.
Yeah,
You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do it.
No.
Nobody would do it.
No, no one would do it. But yes,
This is going out to these scams. That's what they're doing.
yeah,
He said.
yeah. When it comes to online, people are more trusting.
Right.
So there have been so many platforms, especially over this last probably 9 months to 12 months, that have rug pulled.
Right.
Do you have any plans, or have you been approached about going after any other platforms with class
At
action?
least once a week. At
Yeah.
least once a week. I mean, we have to be making decisions whether or not we want to pursue this. At least once a week, somebody tells us about another platform that is a scam that we need to go after. So yes, we hear it all the time.
Yep. So there you go. There's
I mean,
a
it's
lot out
very
there.
likely we'll be filing a whole bunch of other class action lawsuits. So
What was that?
it's very likely that we'll be filing a whole bunch of other class action lawsuits against these other platforms. We're also looking at the I don't know if I could say this. We're also looking, let's say, for example, in the NovaTech case, right? NovaTech Russia was the first country to warn his people about it. Canada warned him. A
Mhm.
bunch of states warned, and there's a lot of red flags out there, right? And yet platforms that people bought their bitcoins on, notwithstanding, allowed them to transfer their monies from their platform into Novatech. And we're batting around the theory that to the extent that there are warnings out there, these platforms should have had some sort of duty to warn their people who trading on their platform not to do this. So it's a novel concept, but we're batting that around.
All
So,
right. Well, I do thank you, Mr. Morris, for taking the
all right,
time
thank
out of
you
your
for
very busy schedule and
Will is
joining us.
fine. Will is fine. Will is fine. You call me Will
Okay,
is
well,
fine.
all right. Well, I do thank you for taking time and joining us. And to my audience, if you ever get the opportunity to send a thank you his way, please do that.
I appreciate it.
So I guess at this point, you've been working your butt off probably Monday through Friday, and you want to kick your feet up. So if you want to just kind of remove yourself
All right,
from
listen,
the,
I appreciate you, Kurt. You're doing good work, and again, I thank you for what you've done with regards to letting people know about this lawsuit. Appreciate it.
well, thank you very much, and
Thank you.
and we look forward to any updates, and maybe we can, if there's updates, maybe we could schedule a time in the future
Absolutely,
here.
I would love to.
People know.
I would love to.
So, all right. Well, I'll let you go and enjoy your Saturday, where whatever it is like down there. So
All right,
until the
thank you
next
so much,
time,
Kurt.
thank you
Take
very
care.
much.
Take care, everybody.
You too. All right. Well, there you have it. So we did not want to take up a lot of his time. And if you've just joined us halfway through or near the end, please go back to the beginning once this is posted on my channel there. Look for that. And we will do everything that we can to keep you updated. And I guess just final, someone asked, where do we join the class action? I'm going to put a link in the description that will take you straight to morselegal.com, I believe it is, where you can click on NovaTech if that's what you're involved in and fill that out. Be patient when you do submit that. You're not going to hear anything back right away. They are extremely busy. They're bringing people in to kind of get on top of this. They didn't realize the extent of the money that was involved, that was lost through NovaTech. They thought it was 2 billion, and now they're looking at, well into double digits. So they're bringing on other law firms to work together jointly and going after NovaTech. So be patient. Once you fill that out, someone will get in touch with you at some point in time. It may be a week, it may be a month, it may be a few months. So we just have to be patient. If there is a field that does not apply to you, such as a church, or you don't remember who you signed up under, just leave that blank. That's not going to void the form out. And stuff like that will be addressed when they follow up with you. As well as in the meantime, just make note of what platform, what exchange you use to transfer money into NovaTech, and just kind of take a little note of what your exchange address is for your wallet, whatever you used. If you wired money, into NovaTech, chances are you have records through your bank, financial institution. And that will be your proof that you're a customer. So hang on to that. Don't just, send it in. Don't be flooding their office with phone calls. He makes every effort to respond to emails in a timely manner, but he's still busy. So if it's very important, otherwise just subscribe to this channel and we're going to keep you updated as the best that we can. And I guess we've been at this now for about 46 minutes, and I'm going to let everybody go and enjoy your Saturday. I thank you for taking the time to join me, as well as with Mr. Morris from Morris Legal out of Miami, Florida. And until the next time, have yourself a great weekend, everybody.